And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly minisode where we dig into the things that we've been watching and reading recently. I'm Terry.
And I am Mary Beth, and this week we are talking the Heather Cinematic Universe, Japanese serial killers, a YA slasher, a wild television show, and creatures of the night. What a mess they make.
What the mess they make.
I'm very excited to talk about this with you because I'm just very excited.
I'm so excited.
But before we get to that, the Heather Cinematic Universe, you say?
Yes. Okay. So I had never seen Heathers before.
Oh, it's Elle. Hello.
Oh, hi
Sorry, I
Elle.
just noticed they wrote in the chat. Anyway,
Sorry for being late. Yeah. So I had never seen Heathers before. Have you ever seen it?
No.
So I'd never seen it, and my roommate quotes it, and with the Netflix movie Do Revenge coming out, or that came out last weekend, I was like in the mood to just watch some bad girls doing mean stuff. And so I started off with Heathers, and that is from 1988, and that of course, has like Winona Ryder, Shannon Doherty in it, Christian Slater.
Later, yeah.
And it's about this girl that wants to be part of the popular clique that's run by three Heathers, and she joins them, and then her new crush JD, played by Christian Slater, convinces her to start killing people and
Hell yeah.
making it look like suicides. And so then it becomes like this whole big situation at school as the body count starts to rise. And aside from the fact that there's surprising amount of homophobic rhetoric in the film that kind of hasn't aged incredibly well, I would say it's interesting to watch it and then watch the follow-on movies that I did watch, because you can kind of see like a connective tissue between all of these movies that kind of, I think, probably started with Heathers. But it's entertaining. It definitely is a product of the 80s. But yeah. So I watched that, and then we immediately went and watched Jawbreaker.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Jawbreaker?
I need to see I've got a weird blind spot with these movies, but I was just thinking about, I need to see Jawbreaker too. So, okay, cool.
Yeah, so we watched Jawbreaker, which I think is a blast and a half, directed and written by Darren Stein, a gay man, and it shows. This movie is very catty and stars like, Rose McGowan from Scream, Rebecca Gayheart, urban legend, Julie Benz, eventually being Dexter.
Is Judy Greer in that movie?
Judy Greer is in it.
Okay.
Pam Grier is in it.
Wait, really?
Uh-huh.
Huh.
Yeah, Pam Grier's in it. There's like Tatiana Ali is in it from Fresh Prince. The sister in Fresh Prince.
Okay.
Has like a bunch of famous people in it. Carol Kane, William Catt, like just a whole bunch of people. And this one surprised me because it opens up with the titular Jawbreaker scene, and I was kind of expecting that to be like the inciting incident, like the 17-minute, plot twist type thing. But it opens up with three of the four popular girls kidnapping the fourth one on her birthday and stuffing a jawbreaker in her mouth and tying her up and putting her in her trunk. And by the time they get to where they want to drive, she has swallowed the jawbreaker and it's lodged in her throat and she has died. And so then they spend the rest of the time trying to cover it up. And Judy Greer's character tries to bring homework home to the dead girl and discovers that they're all involved with it. She becomes popular. Rebecca Gayheart's character wants to not be involved with it, and so she loses her popularity as Judy Greer's character takes on popularity, and it becomes like this dark comedy about all of this going on, and it was a lot of fun, I have to say.
Hell yeah. I want to see it so bad. So maybe this weekend I could, What? Who knows? I'll watch it soon. I'm like, wait, every weekend until the end of October is full of other movies. But still.
But it was a lot of fun. But then the whole reason I watched this, I also watched Mean Girls, and I'm not going to talk about it because, I mean, Mean Girls, everyone's seen Mean Girls. Mean Girls is great. I love Mean Girls. Tina Fey.
Wow, what an incredible triple feature. Triple feature. Triple feature. Anyway.
And then we went on to watch Do Revenge, which is the new Netflix movie.
I didn't make time to watch it yet. What did you think?
I loved it.
Hell
It feels like someone took these types of movies from the 90s and the late 80s, 90s, and just like moved it into 2022 and made it queerer.
All right.
The premise behind it is basically like it's like a dark comedy, strangers on a train. Two girls, each having their own issues. Maya Hawke's character says that like this girl that she was seeing started spreading rumors that she was a predatory lesbian and ruined her life. Meanwhile, Camila Mendez's character is like a poor person that has sort of like stumbled into the rich clique and has his boyfriend named Max, and he turns into a giant dick and leaks a sex tape that she sent out to him, leaks it online and says that he was hacked.
Whoa.
The two of them meet and they end up doing revenge for each other, strangers on a train style, and it goes from there. And there is like one really big surprise in this movie that just like I did not see coming, and I loved it. It takes the predatory les trope and kind of plays with it in an interesting way. I think this movie is smarter and queerer than I anticipated. And it kind of gave me a little bit, like, it reminded me a lot of, like, Jawbreakers and this type of teen dark comedy. But it also reminded me a bit of A Simple Favor?
Oh, yeah, that's the one with Blake Lively and Anna...
Anna Kendrick,
yeah. Oh yeah, the one with Blake Lively is an incredible outfits, and it's like Step on Me, Mommy. Anyhow.
This reminded me of that, and I have to say, the biggest surprise of this was Sophie Turner turning in a cameo performance that is unhinged in the best way.
All right, yeah. I gotta watch this movie.
This one was a blast.
I gotta watch
I really recommend watching Jawbreakers and this together in particular.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Heather's Cinematic Universe.
Wow, what a journey you went on.
I know.
That. Was it this weekend? Is that how you spent your weekend?
That's how I spent my weekend. That and I saw Pearl, which I don't really have much to add to that discussion, except that the soundtrack in that movie was fantastic. Tyler Bates, and I can't remember who else he composed with, but there's one other person. I apologize. But that score is fantastic, and I really enjoyed that movie too.
Hell yeah.
It was good. Japanese serial killers, though.
So I'm cheating and doing Fantastic Fest a week early because I watched it last night and I have to talk about it because it fucking broke my brain. I was not totally sober watching it as like a total heads up, but I mean, like, I went back and watched parts of it today to make sure I wasn't insane, and I'm not. So great. So Missing is directed by Shinzo Katayama. He's a pretty new Japanese director. And this film, it's going to be very hard to give a summary here because it's one of those movies that, like, you don't want to give a lot away in talking about it. But it basically starts off with a young girl trying to find her father after he goes searching for a notorious serial killer because there's a massive reward if someone finds him, and they are very much in debt after the death of his wife and her mom. So he goes on a journey to find the serial killer, and so this little girl, not little girl, she's like a teenager, tries to find him, and there's a bunch of like different storylines and stuff going on, and the reveal of what's actually going on is like heartbreaking, and it goes from this kind of like fascinating like young girl looking for her dad almost like Silent Hill vibes, not with monsters or anything, but with like this searching for someone, this like kind of almost melodramatic score. It's like the atmosphere.
Okay.
So it's like, it's a weird comparison, I know, but it gave me those kinds of vibes of someone just like desperately searching for another person with this music, and also the vibe is like very liminal. Like the way it's shot, it feels very like out of space. Like, I don't know, something about it just feels very detached, and it's very weird and off-putting, and like it is just wild. And then kind of the reveal about the killer and his stuff and what he is doing takes it from this like really interesting story, like detective-y story, to like this bleak ass meditation on life and death and like autonomy behind dying.
Oh, okay.
It's really, really good, but it's just like really heavy. It's a lot, but I really liked it. It's like, God, your quintessential East Asian serial killer movie that just fucks with your head like quite a bit. It's not incredibly gory, but it's like emotionally a nightmare.
Okay.
Really selling this movie, but it's an incredible Japanese like entry into like Japanese serial killer movies / horror, psychological thriller, whatever you want to call it. But I really, really liked it. It's fucking weird and bizarre, and the tone is just like incredibly uncomfortable, but it's really good.
That sounds good. I'm excited to hopefully watch that this weekend with Fantastic Fest.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but I had a great time. Well, great time. Again, it always sounds crazy. Like, I loved watching this movie. I felt like
this movie
shit
that emotionally destroyed me. Yeah, great times are had by all.
But yes, I am very excited, and it's coming out. Bloody Disgusting and Dark Star are putting it out, and I think it's coming out relatively soon. To like,
I was gonna say it's soonish. I think.
Yeah. So we don't have, you guys don't have to wait. It's a festival movie that you don't have to wait that long to see, which is always a nice plus. But so a YA
especially with Asian films. I'm sorry, especially with like Asian films, because there's a lot of times where I will see like an Asian film at a film festival, and it might never get released here.
Yeah, I know. Because it screened at Fantasia, and I think they got it out of Fantasia. But like you said, I feel like there's so many incredible like East Asian or just like Asian horror movies that get these like really awesome festival runs, and then no one picks them up because they're. But I think I'm feeling like this year, especially, more people are picking up those kinds of like foreign language movies. Like I'm thinking about Midnight, which is put up by my place of work, obviously, but like Midnight. We had The Sadness, which is a weird situation because it's a white director, but it's Taiwanese pretty much through and through. I've forgotten every other Asian movie that's come out this year, but I feel like, and this is a very weird theory. I feel like after Squid Game had this like huge thing, I feel like maybe studios are taking it more seriously. Like, that's just like very much my own theory, but after this like internet, like, oh my god, people actually will read subtitles. And it's like, oh, that's depressing. But at least they know, at least maybe they're gonna take like genre cinema from East Asia. Oh yeah, and El made sense. RRR is technically an Asian movie because it's India. It is from India, South Asian, and it came out this year. That's true. That's a really good point.
I still need to watch that one.
Fuck, Terry, you gotta.
I know.
You gotta. If not for me, for Elle. But anyway, going off on a tangent about movies from that part of the world. Changing the subject to a YA slasher.
So I finally, I've been wanting to listen. Well, I say read, but a lot of my reading is done through audiobooks as I'm commuting to work. And I've been wanting to listen / read this one for a while now, and I hadn't thought about it. And then the sequel just came out. So I was like, well, I will finally sit down and I will listen to Adam Caesar's Clown in a Cornfield. Have you read it?
No, and I've been wanting to. It's on my list of things to read because I want to read the second one. And Preston Fassel, friend of the show, recommended it to me. Did he recommend it on the podcast when we were talking? I can't remember.
He might have.
But
Can't remember.
he was saying it's like really, really gory, or it was surprisingly gory for what it is.
The first one is surprisingly gory.
Hell yeah!
It is vicious in a way and mean in a way that I was not expecting.
Okay.
And so the premise of it is that there's this teenage girl named Quinn, and her mother.
Sorry, the Misu appeared, made a chirp, and the door opened, and I was like, what? And I couldn't see her, and then she yelled, and I was like, huh? Anyway, I'm so sorry.
So Quinn, young teenage girl, and her father have moved to this small town of Kettle Springs because her mother had died from an addiction problem, and her father is a doctor and was tired of doing the emergency room type doctor stuff and wanted a little bit slower time.
Very Pet Cemetery setup, except for sans the dead mom, but very Pet Cemetery.
Yes, exactly. And so moves to this little town of Kettle Springs, and it's their first weekend there. They bought this house. The house is like old and it smells like cat piss. And there's like furniture left in there. And it's like, so she's moving there. She's trying to get this fresh start. She meets a bunch of kids and kind of falls into the group with them because I think it's a science teacher. I can't remember what subject he was teaching. I think it was science. Is like a complete dick and sends them all to detention, including her. And so she ends up falling in with this group, and it kind of follows their trajectory, and it seems seems a little off about the town in terms of like the adults and the kids interactions, and it goes along with this fairly like typical young adult young A why adult.
I ask myself that every day. Why adult?
Why adult?
Why adult?
But it falls along with this like typical YA type narrative: new girl in town, meeting new kids, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And then about halfway through, it just like flips a switch, and the last half of the book, literally the last half of the book, is basically the final act of a slasher film. Like, things just escalate from 0 to 100 in a minute, to the point that I was looking at the book going, there is still 3.5 hours left of this book. And I'm like, what's going to happen for these next 3.5 hours? But no, it does not take a fucking break. And it just like speeds to the ending. And it's vicious. It's bloody. Yes, it is bloody. Some girl gets her head like lopped off with a circular saw, and later someone trips over the head. Like, it is vicious. It's vicious.
YA?
And it's YA, but it doesn't.
Fuck
it's
yeah.
YA, and that like it's about kids. And it has some similar tropes that you typically see in these types of books, but curse words are flying, violence is spreading. There's a little bit of gayness to it, which made me really excited for the sequel. It's a great time.
And also, not knocking YA, because this bitch right here loves YA.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting with YA, because I feel like a lot of people are pushing boundaries with it too. I mean, I'm newer to the YA scene, but I'm very excited to read that book. And the second one comes out soon, right?
It's out.
Oh, it's out. That's right.
I'm listening to it right now.
There's so much media.
I rolled right into it.
There's so much media.
That's why I'm enjoying like listening to it, because like it's on my commute. I have nothing else really to do, so like
that's true. I don't have a commute.
It's the perfect
anymore.
time for me.
Just sit in my house. Everyone, just pause with the content, please. For the love of God.
I know.
Let me catch up.
What really surprised me, though, is that I'm like, where is this movie? This is, like, perfect for a movie.
Oh, I know.
This is perfect for a movie. I'm like, where is this movie? Netflix.
I wouldn't be surprised
where
if
is
it's
it?
coming soon. I did nothing, but... And if it's not, well...
I'd also really like to talk to
started.
Adam. He seems like a cool dude.
Ayo, Adam.
Hey.
Sup?
Yo. Come talk about clowns in cornfields.
Sup?
But yeah, so that's Clown in a Cornfield. Really had a good time with it. Loved it. What is this wild TV show?
So we've talked about this show before. It's not new, but I finished White Lotus finally. And I want to talk about it because, wow. That show really is quite incredible. And I hate everyone on it and in the best way possible. Like, what's so interesting about White Lotus, Terry, you talked about this before, and so I'm talking about it again, but it's an HBO Max show.
It's been a while, though.
An HBO Max show, 6 episodes, where a bunch of rich people are going to this, like, beautiful resort on a Hawaiian island. And it's about the rich people and their problems, but also some of the hotel staff and their experience dealing with the rich people. And, you know, obviously that's a pretty familiar setup. But the thing here, I think, is that it's much more sinister and dark. And it's, in my head, it's much more sinister and dark. But it's, like, very subtly that way. And they really get you with some of the... Like, there's especially a relationship between Jennifer Coolidge, who won an Emmy for her performance in this show. And she is absolutely incredible as a woman who is an alcoholic, who, like, just has so much trauma going on in her life. She just does not know how to be a person. But she kind of leeches onto Belinda, who is a black worker at the spa. And their relationship is, like, so fucking hard to watch. Just, like, these... Oh, it's just like, it's a lot to take in across the episodes, but it's man, everything about that show makes me both angry and incredibly entertained. Alexandra Daddario, Do Your Thing, Cuz, is in it. And she's a journalist who hasn't, like, made it super big, and her monologues about journalism and the state of journalism made me want to punch myself in the face. Jake Lacey is a horrific rich husband. Molly Shannon has a cameo. Sydney Sweeney. Right. I mean, like, it's just like, it's an incredible
There's
show.
ass eating.
There's there is, like, explicit ass eating. It's incredible. And the man who plays the hotel manager, I think, also just won an Emmy for his role, which is very well deserved, because good Lord. And also, the show starts off with saying that someone was killed or someone died on the island. So this whole time you're trying to figure out who and why. Everything is a pressure cooker. Like, everything is just getting more tense and tense and tense. And you're like, who the fuck is going to die? And it's they do a really good job kind of setting it up and then subverting it, and setting it up and subverting it, so you're not always like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. So I really enjoyed it, and I think there's another season.
Yeah, there's going to be another season coming, set at a different White Lotus. It's like a chain hotel. It's a whole new cast. I think maybe Jennifer Coolidge is going to be back.
Oh God, she's so good.
She's really good.
So
playing kind of a horrible person in a way.
Oh, she's a fucking terrible person, and it's like, part of you feels bad for her at first, and then as you get to know her, like, oh yeah, you suck. You're
that particular kind of white woman.
Yep. Oh, it's incredible. They do a lot of really interesting stuff playing with privilege and, like, people's perspectives when they're privileged and very wealthy and very white. So.
And I told you this off air, but I honestly, after watching that and Euphoria, I think Sydney Sweeney's just playing herself in these TV shows.
Which scares me.
Yeah.
She's like she's one of those scary, like, Gen Zers that I'm like, I don't want to tell you anything. You're gonna just, like, rip my ass apart as soon as you look at me. I don't want you accessing my deepest and darkest thoughts.
Her and her MAGA family.
Oh, make 60 great again, or 50, or whatever the fuck those hats said. Yeehaw. Anyway. Well. So, Terry, what horror comedy did we watch this week?
Only the best parody movie ever made. No, it's not the best parody movie ever made, but it is. I think this movie is a lot better than it has been given credit for. We watched Mel Brooks's Dracula, Dead and Loving It, a movie that I can literally quote at you. A movie that the dialogue will find its way into conversations. Whenever someone brings up raspberries, I'm like, raspberries? We're not serving raspberries. I will just randomly say that kind of stuff. Or, Renfield, you fell asleep too soon. Wake up. I will randomly quote this movie. But Lucy, I'm engaged to Mina, and you're dead. I love this movie. But I'm curious, because you had never seen it before. What is your thoughts on this film?
I had not seen it before. I definitely... How do I put this? It is very funny, and it's so obviously a beat for beat, like, parody of, like, Coppola's Dracula, like, very specifically, very obviously, and I do think it tries a little bit too hard to, like, kind of retrace those steps, so it's, like, I kept comparing it to Young Frankenstein, which, like, is not the right... I know it's not the move. I know they're two very different movies, but just because of, like, the Mel Brooks adapting a monster parody movie. But I had a lot of fun with it. I was, like, kind of ready for, like, Mel Brooks humor that's, like, a little off color. But this one really isn't.
No.
It's, like, much... It's not, like... It's very inoffensive. And I just fucking forgot how funny Leslie Nielsen is. Like, every scene with him as Dracula is so good. I think that was what was hard. I think, like, I wanted him in it more. And he was in it a lot. I just think his comedic timing and his delivery is just so fucking funny. He is just
it's a little bit dusty. Yes, I like it. But Peter McNichols, too, though. His Renfield, yeah. Oh my god, his Renfield is very good. Like, I want a buddy comedy of the two of them together. And this kind of was like a buddy comedy between the two of them, which was very funny. There's like this whole movie plays with accent gags so much, which like what and like spitting and all of this, like people repeating things back in the accent. But there's also yes, doctor, an emergency.
There's a beginning where Renfield arrives in the town in Transylvania, and this woman gives him a cross, and she keeps...
Played by Anne Bancroft, by the way.
Okay.
That's Anne Bancroft.
She goes a lot like this, and it was so fucking funny. It's just like, it's such quintessential, like, that era of humor, you know what I mean? Like, it's very of that time, but, like, not in, like, an offensive way, just, like, in the gags. No. And the way they're playing with comedy. It is quite funny. That scene is one of my favorites. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Just the, like, I'm scheduled to meet Count Dracula. And everyone's like, Dracula? Scheduled? Scheduled? I was like...
It's so dumb. But, you know, I think that this movie actually kind of has informed my taste in humor. I'm not saying this is, like, the highest quality humor, but it's absurd. Like, it takes things to the absurd degree, where it's not just, like, vampires getting staked in the heart. It is, like, geysers of blood. It's not...
That's a lot of blood!
She just ate! Or, like, when Dracula's trying to get Mina to come outside, and he hypnotized first her nurse, and then hypnotizes her... And then she's like, go to the door, open the door. And she walks in and closes it behind her. And he's like, Mina, you're in the closet. Come out.
Sit down, stand up.
Yes, he's trying to get her to go. And of course, because there's two people that are hypnotized, they're doing reverse things, and some are listening, some are not, and it becomes like this whole comedy. Like, it's absurd, and it takes things to like a degree that reminds me a little bit of like 30 Rock. I think 30 Rock is a sharper comedy than this, but in terms of like the type of humor being absurdist, this movie is absurd, is Mel Brooks' most absurd movie in my opinion, from what I've seen of his comedy. He takes things and stretches it, but like this is just absurdity. It's just absolutely absurd, and I love it.
It's like, it doesn't rely on like big comedic moments, but more of it just like, again, like it's just an absurd atmosphere. Like, it feels a little bit more subtle than I think other Mel Brooks movies that have like these big bombastic moments. Like, I'm thinking Blazing Saddles, Frankenstein,
Yep.
where like you have those big comedic moments, but here it's kind of just like even, which is not a bad thing. It is much different than a lot of the other stuff that Mel Brooks has made, in my opinion. I'm not like a Mel Brooks scholar or anything, but
And I love how it ends too, where Dracula gets killed because Renfield, it wants him to escape through the rafters, and he bursts into flames, turns into ash, and Renfield comes in completely upset and like pushes the ash together and makes a smiley face, and it's like, there, you're starting to look like your old self again. Like, it's just absurd. It's a fucking absurd, and I love it. And I'm happy to say that it has not aged poorly, like some humor that I've seen.
yeah, I will say it does kind of like, it's a little bit timeless. Also, though, there's an obsession with enemas in this movie. There's a lot of talking about enemas, and I was like, is this a homophobic joke? But it's not. It's just about poop. Just about poop.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And I believe that at one point in time, in one point in history, like, people gave enemas for gut help. So like, I think this was like an actual scientific thing that was used at one point.
Flush you free. Flush you. You're full of shit. Ha Gross. Anyway. But I enjoyed it a lot. I'm just glad to have more Leslie Nielsen in my life, because he was also, I loved him in Creepshow. When he's in the Creepshow segment.
He takes off his hat.
Oh, the hat with the
His
hair.
hair.
Like very much the hair. See, I'm glad you watched Coppola's Dracula, because now you get like a lot of the gags in this, from like the steps when he like his shadow, and then he has the hair, and then like the whole thing with Lucy in the garden, and I was like, are they gonna do the wolf fucking scene? And they didn't, but that's okay.
No.
It's all just so, it's just very, it's good. It's fun.
Letting.
Poop letting.
He also says
Thanks.
poop letting.
Yep. Ew. Ew. As if I like was just not talking about enemas.
I guess like now watching it as an adult, the one thing I also really enjoyed was the kind of subtle way that it handles like repression in Victorian time, where like the female characters, when they become vampires, they become a little bit more, sexually and open. And we have Steve Weber playing Harker, and he is like so uncomfortable being around women, to the point that it's a little ridiculous, where like she's like, we've never explored each other, and his response is, thank God. Like, he's so fucking repressed. And I don't know, there's just so much of little small moments in this movie that just like I think work incredibly well.
Yeah.
And you have Leslie Nielsen going when he sees blood.
It's true. You do in fact see that. It's quite incredible. Wow. Well, so for next week, we are putting a pause on horror comedies, because we are covering Fantastic Fest, and we're just going to talk about those movies because we got a lot to watch.
We sure do.
Yes.
We sure do.
But then, Terry, who are we chatting with next week?
So on Monday, we are chatting with the Den filmmaker, Zachary Donahue. He has an upcoming YouTube horror show, Cosmic Horror show that's coming out in October. And he also has like an audio It's not a book. It's more like an audio play, I believe.
It's like an audio.
Yeah, that's streaming on. Shit, I can't remember what the app is, but you'll listen to the episode and we'll make sure to include that in the show notes because I don't have it right in front of me. But yeah, he's great, and he brought with him. At least for me, I'm not gonna speak for you, but my new obsession, I think probably both of our new obsession, Carnival of Souls.
I bought that like immediately after we talked about it. I got the Criterion.
It's so good. And I had never seen it before, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this film, but it's great.
No, it's so good. So I'm very excited for everyone to hear the conversation. Because now I'm obsessed with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Meh.
Me too.
The listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Did you watch a film or read a book that we watched this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should be talking about or for a series we should be thinking about next time? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And, potentially sign up for our Patreon and help support us. Would be great, too.
Yay! Thank you to Eric Carr for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for subscribing. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.